What is going on? My name is Daniel and I'm a photographer here in Helsinki. On this channel we go over everything Canon mirrorless cameras, and today we're going over this and this lens. Yeah, you can tell which one's more expensive just by how I threw this one around. And it is going to be comparing a $100 lens to a $1,000 lens. And the biggest difference is this one's EF and this one's RF glass for the Canon EOS R. Let's get into it. It's not at all a fair comparison, but each one does have their positives and their negatives, and we're gonna go over them in full detail. This is not a photo to photo comparison. This is the attributes and what you can do with them. I will do another comparison of the actual photos taken next to each other in different scenarios to see which one tugs, pulls, does as good, or if it holds up or whatever. If there's interest, down in the comment section. Without any more rambling, let's get into it. So the reason I chose this one right here, the NIFTY 50, to be the lens of choice for the $100 category, to go up against the, let's see if it'll focus on it, to go up against a $1,000 lens is because most people have owned or do own one of these in their collection. The biggest problem with this is that it's actually not a totally $100 investment to get it onto this camera. You're gonna need this adapter right here for the ESO. This is an EF mount for our, the EOS R. And this one costs about $100 and the NIFTY 50 costs about $100, but you could get both of them secondhand if you really tried for about maybe $120. So for comparison's sake, we're just calling it 100 because it makes for a much better video title. But because so many people have this, this makes it a perfect lens. People understand it, and let's go. So the first big difference is weight. Oh my goodness. If I had to club somebody in a bar, I would not grab the NIFTY 50. I would grab this. You'd like hit somebody with this and they'd be like, oh, ow, don't do that. And you hit somebody with this and it would be lights out, all done. Biggest thing is difference. This comes in at about, just the 50 comes in at about 4.6 ounces, and then you put on the adapter and that about doubles the weight, but that still is only a quarter of the weight that you get from this, which comes in at about 24.7 ounces. The entire EOS R is slightly lighter than the lens. So when you put this lens on there, on the front of it, you have a very front heavy lens, and it is like, when you feel the EOS R, but this is a really heavy compact lens in comparison to the EF 104 to 105s. This lens is almost 3 times as heavy as those. Those are very plasticky and you can feel them, and they have a little bit of give, but this one is super solid. It has a little lock there as well. Oh, I just locked it rather than unlocked it. And there's like no give when you do that, which is super nice. These are high quality lenses. So as far as weight goes, we're gonna have to give it to the NIFTY 50. It is very, very travel sized because of that. You can just put this in and into a little bag and go. It's really not that big. We'll throw it on there. Comparison in size, just like that. Not very big. There it goes. Is a very, very large lens on the front of your camera. So we're gonna have to give that one to the NIFTY 50. It's lighter. It doesn't make the camera front heavy, and it is extremely portable. The downside, the mount. Next is the f-stop. This lens, the NIFTY 50, is a 1.8. That means you can have an incredibly shallow depth of field and let in a lot more light than the counterpart coming in at only f4, which is, 4 is a shallow depth of field, but it's not as shallow and it will not let in as much light. The advantage to this one is that it is also a zoom lens, so you can get it more blown out with that zoom. But in total, having this one, which is mostly for portraitures, the NIFTY 50, definitely takes it for f-stop. Once again, this one needs a mount for it. You have to have this on the front of the camera, which it's compatible with everything else, so it's not a complete downside, and you can use all of your EF glass. And this one does not need an adapter, but will not go on any other Canon cameras at all because the RF, there's no adapters to really put it to the EF camera. Next off, we are looking at a fixed lens versus a zoom lens. And honestly, fixed can be nice sometimes because you know it's always going to be 50, but this one gives you that range, that ability to move further out, take that picture, or take a wide angle lens. And this being a full frame camera, 24 is quite a large thing. You could actually just do regular vlogging with the 24 on this. Lens stabilization. Let's actually flip these because I feel like it's unfair to not have this one on there during part of this video. This has no lens stabilization, however, it can make up for it because it brings in more light with that 1.8 that you can bump up the shutter speed to adjust for that, but really holding it in tight, keeping it there, and the fact that it also doesn't knock off the balance helps keep it a little bit more stable when you're taking those photos. But I'll show you photos at the end where we compare the actual, it at half a second versus this stabilization at half a second. So stabilization, this is the only one with it. Solid stabilization, this one takes it. As far as the autofocus on this one is not as crispy. It's kind of an old lens, but it is incredibly loud. Let's see if I can get some of this noise for you. Just first. Very loud lens. Whereas the other one does not have any of those problems. You will probably not be able to have a mic on top of it while you are shooting video unless you're pulling it manually because it's just such a loud lens with autofocus. So once again, our 24-105 takes this one as well. Next up is how close you can have an object to the lens and still be able to take a picture with the NIFTY 50. It is 18 inches or what do they say, 0.45 meters. And 1.5 feet is what you're gonna get with this one. Whereas this one pulls at 12.6 when it is all the way open. That's as close as you can get. When you zoom out, it goes and pushes that a little bit forward by a few inches because this thing's extending about 2 inches. That's one of the reasons. And just when it's more extended, you're not going to be able to be taking pictures of things as close. It's not a macro. Next up is build quality. And like I said, if I was going to club somebody, I would not be clubbing them with this one. This plastic thing would probably shatter all over the place. It is not weather sealed, and overall, it's all plastic. Not very well built. However, it is cheap because of that. This one is weather sealed. The 24-105 f4 is weather sealed, has a nice little latch there, so when you're transporting it, it's not going to come out. However, it's kind of annoying when you take your first picture and you realize that it's locked in place. Open, close. Open, closed. And this has a polycarbonate body, so it is very, very, like, it's a strong lens. I wouldn't want to drop it, but I would feel a little bit safer about it getting knocked around in a bag. And then finally is portability. I would say this is a much more portable option than having this lens on there. That adds another inch, and this weighs almost as much as the camera, so you're doubling your weight when you put that on there. And overall, I'd prefer to be lugging this around all day to lugging this around all day. So obviously this is totally not at all a fair comparison, and in field, I would never bring a NIFTY 50 to a photo shoot and just be good to go. However, I've totally shot an entire party with just this 24-105 f4 on there and a flash. Now we're gonna go over some of the photos to articulate what is going on here and exactly how these photos, like how the two differ, and you can actually see that. Okay, so what you're seeing here is the photos, not side by side, but one after another. This is the depth of field, so cranked up the NIFTY 50 all the way to the highest f-stop, well, the lowest f-stop that you can go. And as you can see, it is totally blown out, that little reindeer there, and you can see the coffee cup, the front side of it, very, very crystal clear. And once again, you can crank up the shutter speed a lot more with the NIFTY 50 than you can with the 24-105. Here is the 24 to 105 at f4, and that's kind of what the depth of field is going to look like. It's not quite as blown out. You can still see the outline very clearly of the deer and a lot more of the coffee mug. As you can tell, I kind of adjusted everything equally before exporting it to this, and yes, the settings were a little bit weird, but this gives you an idea of what that will look like. There is some blur, but it's not super creamy. And here's the inverse, just done with the reindeer being in focus and the background being slightly blurred with the 24 to 105. This is definitely going to be one of the largest reasons to pick up and use this lens with the EOS R, because it is cheap and it is wonderful for blowing out backgrounds. All right, next comes in-body stabilization. So this is going to be obviously the better, the 24 to 105, and this was taken at half a second handheld, and as you can tell, it is still super sharp. You can hardly tell that it was handheld other than it was blown out in the background a little bit. And this is the exact same thing with the 24 to 105 being there for 1 entire second handheld, and it really did a good job there, keeping it nice and steady and crisp. However, here is the 50mm without any stabilization handheld, and this is only at 1/4 of a second. As you can see, it's just the smallest shakes will ruin your photo, and you really can't do that. And then here's at half a second, and it's all over the place. Everything's super blurry and totally blown out. Then to the last part, which is probably the best part to not buy a 50mm and to go with the 24 to 105, is that you can have that wide open. So this is from the exact same position, all the way wide open at 24mm. And then you can also zoom in and change your framing from the exact same position, and this is at 105. And once again, here's the only framing you would get from that position with the 50mm. So the obvious and clear winner for overall shooting is obviously going to be the $1,000 24 to 105 f4, but for portraits and just ease of use and being portable is going to be the NIFTY 50. So this is going to take better portraits because you're going to have a better blown out background. Other than that, it's not even a fair game. That's the only two differences that they have. So if you enjoyed this and you want to see another video where I actually take shot by shot, side by sides, where it's more things than just a coffee mug and just showing you how that works, then just throw it down in the comment section. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. On this channel, we go over everything Canon mirrorless cameras. My name is Daniel, and thank you for watching.